Welcome to the Make More Dough podcast presented by the Mighty Baker. I am Pete Tidwell and I coach bakers how to make more dough in and out of the kitchen. Join me as I share my knowledge and expertise on essential topics for running a successful bakery business. If you're looking to take your bakery business to the next level, don't forget to visit our website to learn more about getting coached by Pete. Together, we can help you achieve your business and life goals and make more dough. Each week, I'll provide tips and strategies on mindset management, marketing management, and time management. But that's not all. I'll also be interviewing fellow entrepreneurs, bringing you their insights and inspiration to help you thrive in this competitive industry. Don't forget to join the Mighty Baker Make More Dough business Facebook group for a community of bakery and small food business entrepreneurs to connect and share knowledge. Tune in and let me be your guide on your journey to bakery business success. So come on and let's jump right in the mixing bowl and see what is being mixed up and discussed in this week's episode of the Make More Dough podcast. Let's go. Welcome to the Make More Dough podcast, where we talk all things bakery and food business. Today, I have the incredible opportunity to interview Bennett Maxwell. An experienced salesman, Bennett Maxwell has been making use of his skill since his days of selling candy bars in elementary school. Sharing his sales and business expertise, Bennett is a member of the Forbes Business Council and Apex Executives. He also traded in his elementary school candy bar business for something slightly bigger. Bennett is currently lowering business barriers and raising mental health awareness through his cookie selling franchise, Dirty Dough. He stands for authenticity and self-acceptance, encouraging others to come as they are. You might even say that from a business perspective, Bennett is one tough cookie. So I first met Bennett through a networking group here in Utah called Tribe House, and it was just back in November I met him for the first time. And it was amazing meeting him for the first time and just getting to know him and getting to know his personality, hearing what he has going on. He took me out to lunch a little while ago, and it's just been fun to get to know a fellow entrepreneur in the same space. And I'm really excited because since I've met him, I've noticed online that he's been doing so many exciting things in Dirty Dough. And my audience is all bakers, like whether they're a home baker or a bakery business owner or somebody looking to maybe buy a franchise, like this is the audience that he needs to be in front of to be able to just share kind of what he has going on. And I really love to be able to share different perspectives on different ways you can enter in the bakery industry and what that even looks like. So anyway, welcome Bennett to the Mighty Baker podcast.
Thanks. I'm super excited to be here. And
hey.
Power Rangers, dude.
I know. My little setup back here is so fun. It was a little bit funny because when I was on Cake Wars, I hesitated to ask if I could keep some of the characters, and I'm so glad that I asked because they probably would have just got thrown in the trash and they wouldn't be up on my shelf. So
that's fun.
That's awesome. Okay, so I've got some questions to ask you, Bennett, and we just want to get to know you a little bit on here. And I want my followers, my listeners to be able to hear a little bit about what you have going on. So first off, like, I don't even really know the answer to this question, but like, can you tell us a little bit about your background? Like before Dirty Dough, like what kind of brought you to this point? And then we'll talk a little bit more about Dirty Dough and what you have going on there.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of an outsider in the baker's world. Actually, a lot of an outsider. This is all super new to me. Grew up in Utah, big family, raised with a single mom, 9 kids, a lot going on there, which kind of, I guess, forced you into the hustle mentality of like, if you want something, go get it, because you're mostly on your own. So I got into sales early on, and I mean, like, the candy bars in elementary, to shaved ice stands in the corners, and lemonade stands, lawn aeration, door to door, all of that, elementary and junior high. Got into Cutco, did some sales there, and then jumped into the door to door world, did some pest control, some smart home, some solar, and I just I love the ability to communicate effectively with people and give them a product, find out what their issues are, and then try to resolve those with the product. That's a win for me, win for the company, win for the customer. And I just fell in love with sales and professional sales. That led me to starting a solar company um, in San Diego. I was running that with a brother, and then Dirty Dough came along, a guy that I went to high school with. He posted on Facebook saying he wanted an investor to take his business from a delivery only out of his apartment at Arizona State University to an actual storefront. So that was in like mid 2019. So I invested. Other than that, I never even spoke with him. Like I just don't know this world, right? Then I wanted him to franchise the business when I was living in San Diego, and I saw Crumble opened up in San Diego when they were crushing. I was like, oh, dude, let's do Dirty Dough. Like, obviously, this is a good market. And they did like 3.6 million at Crumble San Diego. And I'm just like, dang, let's do a Dirty Dough out here. And he said, you know what, this baker's life, it sucks. He was, working the 100-hour weeks, never hired a manager. So that storefront opened in March of 2020, and I was pushing him to franchise shortly after that. And he said, you know what, I'd rather just sell the business. So I ended up purchasing it in January of 21. And then I sold my solar company shortly after to focus full time on Dirty Dough. So yeah, I've been in it for just over 2 years as far as in the cookie world, or
Well,
in that world at all.
dude, that's amazing. That's a really fun story. I like that. And you've done so much with it over the last couple of years. It's been really fun, like I mentioned in the beginning, just to see all the things you're doing. So much content and so many things out there. I hear people talking about Dirty Dough all the time too, like outside of that. So it's amazing to see, and I love it. And the other thing I wanted to ask you with that is, so I have noticed in your content, like you talk a lot about mental health as an entrepreneur and yourself and just in that space. And that's, of course, right up my alley in here. That's kind of what I'm trying to do in the industry, is like be a coach for individual owners of bakeries and work on mental health. So I want to like really maybe open the door and kind of get to know a little bit, like, what are the mission and values of Dirty Dough? Because it sounds like you've got some really good, solid mission and values in there that you're trying to give back and really focus there. I'd love for you to kind of elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah. So with the solar business, I love selling solar. I felt like it was a great product. I was always saving customers a lot of money, no money down, and I loved it. I dove into it, but it was about the money because I was making good money. Like I believed in the product on this, but I was after the money. And I told myself I was gonna, do whatever it takes basically to be successful, right? So I was working the nights and the weekends and all that. I have 3 kids, I have an amazing wife, and I put them secondary. And I told myself that it'd be worth it, because once I grew the business to X amount, or I sold the business, whatever that end goal was, I wasn't even clear on that. Then it was going to be worth it, and my family would be grateful, because I would have more money, and more money means free time, and free time means vacation time. And what am I doing while I'm vacationing? While I'm with my family, and being with my family makes me happy. So I sell the solar business, and I had the residual income. I had a handful of rental properties. I had the cash now. I still had Dirty Dough, and it felt amazing, right? But that dopamine doesn't last in your brain for that long. So within a few weeks, I noticed myself going back to the old habits of working nights and weekends. So I thought, okay, I was 28. I have to stop this. If I don't stop it right now, I'm gonna do this for the rest of my life. I'm always gonna go over the next shiny object, and I'm gonna put my health, my family, my relationships secondary for some goal that I hit, and I feel good for however many days or hours or minutes, and then I just set the next goal. So that was kind of what started me on the journey of, okay, selling the solar company. I started seeing a therapist to see why my beliefs didn't match up with my actions, right? And it was because my beliefs really weren't what I thought my beliefs were. So I started really diving into my own psyche and trying to understand, and getting into more meditation, whatever. And then I did several activities to know, okay, what am I going to be about for the rest of my life? Like, who am I? What do I want to do? And I settled on joy and fulfillment. So joy is a little bit more than happiness to me, because it's okay not to be happy, right? If we're searching for happiness and we're sad, we're stressed, which is so often, then it's like, shoot, I'm supposed to be happy, I'm not. Where you can have a joyful life, in my opinion, and still have the ups and downs. But overall, right? And then the fulfillment piece. It's not just about feeling good. Are you making a difference and helping other people? So that's where the fulfillment is typically, contributing to something greater than yourself. So I landed on the mission statement, which is now Dirty Dose's mission statement, but it's my personal mission statement. Whatever business I do, this is what I plan to base it off of. Is to find joy and fulfillment despite life's dirtiness in ourselves and others. That despite life's dirtiness is, don't wait to sell your solar company, right? Don't wait to hit XYZ to find joy and fulfillment. You have to find it now, or else you're just always going to be waiting for it. Focus on yourself first and focus on as many people as possible. So that's what got me into that mindset. And I can also talk about how I've tied that into Dirty Dough a little bit or anything like that. But to me, it's joy and fulfillment. That's my mission.
Oh, I love that. That's incredible too. It really pairs up well. It seems like we've kind of been on a similar journey. So back in 2021, I went and got certified as a life coach because I had closed down a couple bakeries, and I was in that life that you described in the beginning of your friend, right? Of the 100-hour week, the health problems mentally, physically. And I was in a horrible spot. I closed both my stores down. I'm like, what do I do? And it was because I was missing the piece that you just talked about. I was missing the mindset piece and understanding that I can create the results that I want in my life, but I need to fix what's going on up here from a thought standpoint. And that's huge, such a huge thing, massive. And I'm 40, so a little bit older than you. And like, sometimes I think like it, I like, sometimes I think like, oh man, like it's too late to make a change like this, but it's not. And I like to try to challenge people out there of like, if you think you're stuck in your ways and stuck in kind of what you're doing, like you can stop and you can make a shift and you can improve your mental health no matter where you are in your life. And anyway, those are some thoughts I was just having while you were talking there.
That's super. I like that you brought that up because I've talked about it maybe a time or two, but I think it should be more talked about. A year ago, I wasn't on social media. Like I had accounts, never posted on LinkedIn, and I would post a few times on Instagram for kids' birthdays, and it would stress me out because what's the caption? Is it witty enough? Is it funny? Is it too serious? Is it too loving? Can I use the word beautiful? And getting out there and sharing who I am and goals, and that was so freaking scary because of all that hate that's been possibly online. But the bigger thing was that I struggled with was who I have been in the past and who I want to be in the future doesn't line up. I have the same group of 12 dudes, and like eight of us went to Orem Elementary together, and the Lakers Junior High. A few more, I think 11 of us went to Lakers Junior High, and then one person, the late bloomer, we've been friends only since high school. And like they live 2 houses down from here, right here on the corner. And then you have your family, and I have a very big family. So it's like, well, I've been the pull yourself up by your bootstraps. It's all about hard work. Anxiety isn't real. Depression isn't real. That's in your mind. Headaches aren't real. That's weak-minded. And now to not only go to the world and say, I'm changing, and I felt like they were the ones holding me back, which it wasn't true. They are all cheering me on. But it didn't feel like that. I didn't feel like I was supported. I'm like, well, these guys know who I am. These guys know who I am. I can't be something different. And then I was like, I don't know if I could say I won't say the F word, but
yeah, you're fine.
Right? Like they don't know who I am. I don't know who the hell I am. So I'm not going to be put in this box of who I think they think I am, which wasn't even true anyway. But that was really difficult for me. It was really difficult to come out and be like, oh, does my family support the new me or this or that? And then it's just like, well, one, they did, but I was very scared of them not doing that. And it was, oh man, yeah, that as you were telling me that, I started getting, whatever that is in your chest, it's something anxiety. Oh yeah, that was hard to go through.
Yeah, because
just change.
You in those moments, you start like doubting yourself, and you start like doubting all the different things, right? But it's so freeing when you get to the point when you finally make that switch and you're like, wait a minute, people aren't out there thinking all this crap about me. Like, yeah. It's just me. Like nobody else is thinking that. It's just me. I'm the only one in my way, and that's it. But not, and that's such.
I just saw something. It was like in your, you in your 20s or your 30s, whatever, you're so focused on what everybody's thinking of you. And then your 40s and your 50s, you stop caring. And then in your 60s and your 70s, you realize nobody was talking about you in the first place. Like you weren't even on their radar.
It's
Just
so funny.
nobody's I just saw something else like that too. The Queen of somebody posted and they said the Queen of England has amassed more wealth than 99.9% of anybody who's ever lived, ruled for 70 years and all these great accomplishments. She's been dead for 5 months, and this is the first time you're hearing about her. Be you. Nobody's thinking about you. Like nobody's here to hold you to anything. Somebody as important as the Queen of England, we stop talking about her as soon as she's dead. So it's like just live life and just be you.
Oh, I love it.
I thought that was a great message.
It's so good. So good. Okay. So when it comes to like, you're like on the daily for Bennett, right? Like you're working on Dirty Dough, you've got all these different things going on. And I can tell from like meeting you a couple times, like you are a creative problem solver. You're a strategist. You're like you look at like trying to figure out what's the best way to work things out. How do you balance the creative strategy side with the business stuff that is often, because that's often a challenge, whether it's a small business owner or big business owner? How have you found the best way to be able to balance the creative aspect and the business side?
I think I'm really good at business because of the creative. So maybe
okay, yeah.
Answer you and you push back, and if I'm not answering it,
oh, you're good. Yeah,
I understand it correctly. But I feel like I'm a good. I've never made a batch of Dirty Dough cookies. Like that's not me. And I've always said I'm not a creative person because like, when it comes to marketing or this and that. And then the more I get into it, I'm like, oh, I'm actually like everything I'm doing is creative, and it's creative
yeah,
solving, which makes me good at business. Like you gave me a problem and I will solve it. And then it's like, oh, I thought that was because I was analytical and I could see this and that and foresee, how things are going to play out and then make a better decision. But it's creativity on like, hey, nobody's ever done this before. Let's do this. Let's try it. And I think that also helps being an outsider in the food and bakery and franchise business, because it's like, well, why can't I solve it this way? I don't have any preconceived notions. So that creativity is really what it's all about. Like, here's the problem. Let's talk to 100 people and get feedback and get smarter people. And then I'm going to ultimately make the decision. But it's, getting a lot of creative minds together.
Yeah, that's a perfect answer, because the reason I ask that is because the majority of my listeners, the majority of the people that I work with are kind of in the same situation as I was years ago. I like baking. I like making cakes. Luckily, I worked for my brother and have some business experience. I went to school and did marketing and communication. So I have a good background there. But most people that want to get into the bakery business, they don't know business. They don't know any business. All they know is how to bake a cake and how to decorate a cake. Other than that, it's all confusion for them. And that's why I started my coaching business, to try to kind of pull those things together, right? Because if you don't know the business part, you're probably going to suffer, and you're going to work 100 hours a week and you're going to burn yourself out.
There's a book, my favorite business book. It's called The E-Myth Revisited. Okay,
that's a good one.
They use in the book is a baker, which I love because now I'm like in the baker business. But just to summarize it, that the E-Myth, and I implemented this with my solar company, which is what allowed me within a year to work myself out of the business to be able to purchase Dirty Dough. And then, I was only in the solar business for 18 months because from day one, we started the E-Myth. So the E-Myth is the entrepreneur myth. The entrepreneur myth is I'm a good baker, so I'm going to open up a bakery, not understanding that you could be the best cake maker in the world or muffin maker or plumber, whatever, but that doesn't mean you know how to keep books and do financial projections and raise capital if needed, or do marketing and loyalties and retention for customers and reviews and feed. There's so much more that goes into it. So the principle in this book that I took away was day one, write out your company's organization chart. What do you want your company to be in 3 years or 5 years? So, I have a CEO, I have somebody over finance, I have somebody doing bookkeeping, I have a sales manager or a regional salesperson, sales manager, sales rep, blah, 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 marketing, whatever. And then you just put your head in every single one of those positions. Or when I was in solar, it was me and my brother. And I was like, Brent, this is so stupid. Like there's two of us. Why were we building an org chart of 20 people if there's just two of us? Well, now it allowed us to see where we wanted to go. And then you start focusing one by one on each position. You build out all of the standard procedures. You learn that position inside and out. Then you replace yourself. Then you hire somebody. So for me, I was the sales rep. What does the sales rep say? How many hours do they work? What are the incentives like? What is the pay structure? What are the bonuses? What are everything? And then as soon as I did all of that and wrote it all down, then I hired a sales rep and I promoted myself to sales manager. Well, what is the override structure? How do they do their training? How are they accountable? Blah, 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 blah. And then you promote the sales rep and I promote myself to a regional, right? And then you slowly work your way out of the business while also making sure you learn it. Anyways, that was something that was super, super helpful. And within a year, both my brother and I worked ourselves out of the business 95%. And then that's what allowed me to jump into the baker world of dirty dough.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm glad you mentioned that book because it's one that I want to read again soon, because I say that I know it, but I read it years ago in college, like years ago. And like, I kind of knew some of the principles of it, but it's so funny because I look back at my experience and I'm like, I read the book before I did it. And I did the exact same thing as the book. Like I made the same mistakes, right? Like,
yeah, people ask, did you read that book? I was like, yes, 5 years ago. I don't even remember what it was about.
I happen to
but
just
I remember it was good.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm glad you mentioned that though, because it's one that I recommend for people to read that I work with, because like you need to understand that, because oftentimes it's put across. I think you mentioned this at the beginning of the call, is that I think as we grow up, we think that we're like, oh, if we just work really hard, it's gonna work. If we just work hard, but everything's going to work out. And that's kind of how I've operated for years until a few years back. And then I was like, wait a minute, I need to work smart. And that's such a different thing. You still have to work hard, but I don't know, maybe you have some thoughts on that too.
So so the first step was mission statement, right? And I shared the mission statement. The next step is core values. And one of the activities I did in finding my core values was I sent a text message to all my family members and a bunch of my friends. And I said, hey, I'm trying to get clear on what I want to do. I forgot the actual text message, but can you share with me what you believe my top 3 to 5 core values are? The more insight and descriptions, the better. But anything's accepted, And I had 21 people respond, and I put that in a spreadsheet. And I was like, this one is a visionary, but this one's creative. Like, is that, kind of lumping it in and saying, well, the number one thing was hard work. Like my core value is hard work. Well, guess what's not on my core value list? Hard work. Because the next activity I did was write your own obituary. And for me, it's not important to be known for hard work. And I guess my reasoning is a little extreme. There's a lot of terrible people in this world that are extremely hard workers. I bet you Hitler worked as hard as anybody, right? I bet you Pablo Escobar worked as hard as anybody. So it wasn't about working hard. Now, again, not saying I don't work hard, but that was the number one core value that other people saw me as, which I'm not offended by, but that's not what I want to be known by, because it's not about working hard. It is about working effectively, creatively, while finding, fulfillment during it.
Yeah. As you were talking, I was thinking about that, because it's like, you've got to create the clear strategy and roadmap, like you're saying, and then go execute on it. The way that I think most small business solo owners go at it, like I did, was just start and figure it out as you go, which sometimes that works for people, but
you do have to start, right?
But you have to start.
You do also have to have a vision. So it's the chicken and the egg, because it's like, well, don't start till you don't need to wait till you have the full vision, but you do need to know at least what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want joy and fulfillment, right? That's very broad, but now that's enough to execute on. That's enough to go figure out the rest.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay. So As you've gone through your journey with Dirty Dough and all your different investments, experiences, work experiences, what have been some of the biggest challenges that you've faced as a business owner or through your career? And how have you overcame them? And you've touched on a little bit of those, but maybe if there's experience or something, a challenge that you've had that you're like, okay, this is something that's really helpful and valuable for somebody to hear.
Yeah, I think what I kind of already shared was one of the first ones of just get out there and stop worrying about people hating. Like you have to build a personal brand, which I was scared to death of. And I still don't even read comments and stuff. Not that I even have that big of a following. But I'm just like, I don't even get on it. I have somebody else kind of, doing that. But that was a big step of just like, I can't be scared anymore of sharing my goals. Like to say that I wanted to open up 1,000 stores and like that was, I didn't want to tell people that because what if I failed, right? And now I'm telling the whole freaking world that, and then people support me and they say, "Oh, well, let me help you," this and that. So that was a big thing. I guess a little bit earlier on, a principle that I learned that's helped me a ton in business. Work to learn, not to earn. That's what I've always lived by, and it just got reinforced. I think it was last night or the night before I watched Alex Hermosi's a gym franchise guy, and he said, "Invest all of your money back into yourself." Until you and then you just do that forever. However much money you spend or make, you pay your expenses and you reinvest all of that back into yourself. And that's again that concept of work to learn, not to earn. The money will always follow. Last year was my biggest growth year, and last year I spent over 6 figures on myself between coaching and masterminds and this and that and therapy. And holy crap, it made such a big difference because I'm going to carry that knowledge with me forever rather than, a vacation here or there, which I also did some of that. But work to learn, not to earn helped me a ton as well, going door to door. If I'm going to get shut down door to door, because you get hundreds of no's a week or a day, sometimes. And if I focused on, well, if I get a no, I don't make any money because it's 100% commission based rather than, well, if I got to know, how can I craft my presentation to be better than next door? So, for example, in California, in San Diego, it's the most saturated solar market. You knock on the door and you hear, "Is this solar? You're the 10th guy this month," right? So I was like, oh, crap. Well, the next door I'm going to knock on, I'm going to say, "Hey, how's it going? I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, is this solar? You're the 10th guy this month." Guess what they're not going to tell me? Guess what I guarantee they're not going to tell me? Guarantee you they're not going to say, "Is this solar? You're the 10th guy this month." I beat them to the punch, right? So I've crafted and I've learned from my previous experience to be better in the future. And that's it helped my mindset, my mentality of it's okay, I didn't make any money on that door. Am I a better person because of it? Am I a better communicator because of that? And then that helped me be a better salesperson, it helped me be a better communicator. But I think the biggest thing was my mindset. I was no longer down on myself for not making the sell. I was, cool, what did I learn from that door? How can I be better on the next one? So
Yeah. The investing in yourself and taking that time is huge. And I was having a conversation with somebody the other day and they were really concerned because they didn't have any money to like get a therapist or those kind of things or coaching or those kind of things. I'm like, even if you don't have any money to invest in those things right now, like we all have family, we all have friends, we all have at least somebody, I would hope. And if not, like call me, I don't know, send me a message. Like, you know what I mean? Like if
there's
you
so much
need
free stuff out there though that you can start with.
there's a ton. Yeah, there's a ton of things that you can start out with. So many people that you can follow on social media that give free tips and free things to work on. And there's so many things out there. And I think some people feel like, oh, well, I can't do that until I have enough money. But it's like, no, like there are things you can start doing right now that cost no money at all. Right.
Read the E-Myth Revisited, right? Like that's $10 on Audible.
Exactly.
That can change your
Exactly.
life.
Oh, yeah.
So, but I do get that asked a lot as well. Of the money thing, and it's kind of like that's a hard one. You don't want to get anybody in a financial bind, but it's like it's the chicken or the egg. Are you gonna wait till be able to pay a coach, or are you just gonna freaking pay somebody to guide you, and then trust that you are a better person you provide more value, and in return, you get more money because money is just an exchange of value.
Totally. And it's so true. And that's an important thing to touch on, because like I've invested in coaching in the way of like, I really need it and I need to do this. And I had to make some sacrifices in order to make it happen. But I think each person, we know if that timing's right? Like, because I knew like I need to jump on this right now because the timing's right. And so I had to make it work, whatever that looked like. Right.
Yeah. I mean, last year was the first time I hired a business coach. And I kind of, because it was part of a mastermind, it was kind of forced on me. And I always thought, like, what are these coaches going to teach me that I can't freaking find online? But am I finding it online? So it
It's
was
so different.
so helpful. I'm like, I will never, ever go without a coach, like ever, because it was so beneficial. But that attitude of mine, like, well, I can do it myself. I could do it myself. It's like, maybe that's true, but I'm not doing it.
Well, that's the ego, right? It's the ego where we're just like, oh, we can do it all ourselves. We're fine. But really, like, it doesn't hurt to have somebody help you. It like,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no necessarily like pride to necessarily say like, I worked 120 hours a week and I have horrible health. Look at me. Like,
Like the social media thing, that's been one of the biggest boosters for the business. I mean, we've sold 340 franchises in less than a year and a half without spending any money on brokers or anything like that. It's literally just my personal brand, which didn't even exist 18 months ago. Like we're just starting it.
so awesome.
So why did I start a personal brand? Well, Mike Claudio, my business coach, and anyways, he's like, you have to get out there. You have to start daily posting. I was like, daily posting? I can't. It gives me anxiety to come up with a freaking caption. How am I supposed to come up with a post every day? And basically what it came down to. And then the other thing is, I have a cousin that was one of the first employees with Crumble, and I haven't owned a competing business. And I'm like, well, I don't want to like act like I'm competing with him. And he's like, does your cousin pay your bills? And I'm like, no. He goes, well, then F him, dude. Do what's best for your family. And I was like, okay, I just needed somebody to swear at me, I think, and then boom, it triggered it. And then the next day, okay, Mike, he has no idea about food or franchising. But then it's like, okay, to continue that, get a podcast. And then we open the podcast, write a book, and my book's almost finished. And all these other things that I would have never, my mind wasn't even on that, because I'm like, what is this guy going to teach me about franchising? He doesn't know franchising, right? But there's so much more of just general business, and it's just getting somebody to kick you in the ass sometimes.
You have to have it. I've had a business coach for the last year, and it's huge. It's such a big, huge thing. And it's something that has just like it, looking back, I'm like, it's kind of similar to what you're saying. Like, why didn't I do this a long time before? But all things in the right time, right?
Yes. You asked me earlier, I just remember you asked me what I struggled with, but I felt like it was a two-part question.
Oh, you're good.
I didn't answer it that good though.
No, you're good, man.
We were talking a lot about the struggles and the stresses, and I mean, I think just the pressure of putting yourself out there and being exposed and vulnerable in multiple ways, whether it's on social media, telling somebody that your plan sucks, your idea sucks, or hiring employees and having them depend on you, and you being vulnerable, and knowing that if you don't make it work, they don't have a paycheck. That is as hard as freaking anything on me. The fear of failure and letting other people down, which is something that that's mindset, that's mentality. I can't control people. People are adults. If they want to work for me, they're going to work for me because they believe in me. And if that belief was mistrusted because I'm an idiot, well, they're an idiot for believing in me. But at the same, like what I'm getting at though, it's so hard because I'm like, I have to control everything. I have to make sure everybody's successful, this and that. But I'm like, I can only do what I can do. And if I try to, it's just mentally, that's the hardest part, I think, is me trying to control everything, and the stress and the anxiety that comes with that. And that's what I focus on a ton, is just letting that go. And then at the same time, communicating with those people that are relying on me and saying, and being more upfront with problems. This is our problem. How do we resolve it together? I don't know. I'm the boss. I don't freaking know. Do you have any feedback? And then let's work together to do that. But that's hard.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, so my next question goes into, I noticed with Dirty Dough, like I love how you have your cookies that you have it stuffed. You've got something inside. You got different like fun flavor combos and like from a recipe development, ingredient selection, and maybe more like new trends and techniques. Like where do you find your inspiration? Is it just from like going out and about, or is that like a collaboration event where you have a lot of people in your company?
Yeah.
Um,
So I'm not involved other than on Wednesdays I show up for cookie testing.
mhm,
I don't even like it's not even planned. It's just I try to
yeah.
be on Wednesdays because I know it's coming. So like the actual ideas for the recipes, I don't have involvement on. What I do have involvement on is big business strategy, which is how do you make a unique product? A cookie's a freaking cookie, right? So, well, our model is very different though. We're mass producing cookies in a centralized facility. So how do we leverage that to differentiate ourselves from the competitors? And again, my customers are my franchisees. So how do I give my franchisees a product that other people can't copy? You look at Crumble, the number one company. I mean, anybody can make a crumble cookie, right? It's just a flat cookie with icing or with the half inch of frosting. There's nothing special about it. Go try to make a 3-layer cookie. 3-layer cookie is a peanut butter cookie on the outside, a chocolate cookie in the middle, and a hot fudge filling. Go try to make that by hand and sell it in 800 stores. Yeah. Okay. You have 800 stores open. I'm speaking to Crumble. Do a gluten-friendly cookie. Oh wait, you can't. So, but we can. So it's what's our model and how can we leverage it? Next month we're releasing a protein cookie, 25 grams of protein, more protein than you can get from a Quest cookie or a complete cookie or anything else, right? An allergy-free cookie, no dairy, soy, whatever. That's another thing that we can leverage. Finding specialized machines is where my mind goes. How could we make the machine that we just ordered makes pizzas, like little mini pizzas. And I'm like, well, can we make an open faced like pie cookie? And it's like, well, probably, so it's like, cool, let's mass produce that because that's really hard to make by hand. So my creativity is more on the mass production side. How can we leverage what we're already doing even more and be creative on that front, which is like another thing that we're looking at is a stuffed churro type cookie, right? So just finding these machines to leverage our model even more and getting products out there that nobody else is. Now, I'm not going to formulate the recipe or know how it tastes or anything like that, but it's like I want a pie series of 10 cookies. Can you go make those? Here's the machines and the production model to do that.
Yeah. Oh, that's fun. That's like the dreaming, the kind of figuring out, well, what can we do? And just making
Yeah.
it happen. It's the out of box thinking that's like really exciting. I really like that. And that's why I wanted to ask you about that. Cause I'm like, I love it. It's so much fun. It sounds like a great thing.
It's like catering, you go on to the competitors' websites, and if you want to order catering, it's a 48 hour turnaround time. Well, because they're making them to order, right? Well, we've already mass produced our catering cookies, and they're tiny and they're still 3 layers. So we do a 4-hour turnaround time, which nobody in the industry is doing, because again, our model allows us to. You just pull them out of the cooler, pop them in the oven. 4 hours is good. So, and then now we need to do a much better job at marketing because our catering sales are way too low. Even though we have the best catering model, in my opinion, I'm like model. It's like we're the only ones that can do a 4-hour turnaround time at scale. But yet our catering sales still are too low. So now, go solve the next piece, which is more of the marketing and the messaging.
Yeah. Well, there we go. Anybody listening, go and order some catering cookies from Dirty Dough. I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay. So here's a question for you. So a lot of my audience are, like I mentioned, like home bakers, or they're a single business owner, or they're looking into trying to, get into a location or franchise or something. From your perspective, what advice would you give my audience to aspiring bakers, future bakery business owners? Because when people, maybe I'll elaborate for a sec, because when people get into this, they start baking and their first goal is, okay, I need to open a store. That's what I need to do in order to call myself a so-called success, right? But once they get there, like I got there, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I should have figured out a lot of things before I got here. So what would be any advice that you would have for somebody in that situation to like maybe not rush into it so quick? What are some things that does that question make sense?
Yes, and I had an answer before you even finished it. You have to know what you want, and that's hard, but you really, I mean, for me to really dive deep and come up with a mission statement, it was a few days, it was honestly a few hours, and then another few hours slash a week to collect feedback and build the spreadsheets and like, but I'm talking less than 20 hours of work. I have the framework of my core values and my mission statement that I plan on using for the rest of my life. Like just spend the time on doing that, because what do you like doing and what are you good at doing? Make sure that those are the same, and then go with it. So what do I like doing? I like sales. What am I good at doing? Sales. Why the hell would I ever be a sales manager? But the natural progression for a sales rep, I sold for a summer. Next summer, I recruited 40 dudes. We all moved out of state to go sell a product. I was not a good manager, and I never been a manager since, because I just thought that was the natural progression. But that's not what I wanted. That's not what I was good at. What I wanted, again, was in the sales world, I just wanted more money. And what I was good at was sales. It was way more effective for me, and I enjoyed life more just being a sales rep. But everybody's like, oh, you're the top sales rep. Why don't you be a manager? It's not for me. That's not what I want. So are you a good baker? Do you enjoy what you're doing? Then why the hell do you want to own a freaking bakery? I don't know. Now, if you do want to own that, then that's totally fine. But just know what you actually want. Is it about the money? There's bakers that don't own their own bakeries that are still probably making as much money as you want to make, right? It's like, well, it's not about the money. I just want to own the business because I want to make 200 grand a year. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of bakers out there that are making 200 grand a year without the stress of the business, right? So know what you want and go try to find that, rather than thinking, I want money, I want to bake. The only option is to own a business. That's not the only option.
Oh, I love that. Perfect. That's exactly what I'm looking for, because that's what I try to talk about that often with my clients, is like, let's figure this out, because you're going to save yourself a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of heartache by putting some of that work in the beginning, really trying to clarify that. And of course, that leads us into my next question. Of course, like, you got to take action, and you've got to fail, and you've got to like learn as you go. But like, there's the next question for you is, how do you navigate, like, once you actually are going towards a strategy and you're working towards it, obviously there's setbacks, there's sometimes failures, there's sometimes those things. How do you deal with failures and setbacks in your business and life, and how do you move on from those?
Figuring out, I mean, to solve a failure or setback, like I was telling you before, we had this show scheduled for last week and I had to cancel last second, and I hate doing that. And I told you why. We shipped out a bunch of cookies to Arizona. We're out of Utah. Chocolate chip cookies, our number one seller, and they were unusable because they were as flat as a pancake. I'm not a baker. I don't know the food science on that. So what it was is, okay, let's bring in the baker, let's bring in the food scientist, let's bring in the production manager, and then I hired 2 third-party consultants. Like, I brought in that day, 2 separate ones. What the hell's happening, right? I didn't come up with the solution. I didn't identify the problem. Well, we'd switched flours. The protein content was the same, but the absorption rate wasn't the same. I don't know what an absorption, I would have never, you know what I mean? And then, okay, well, that's an issue, but we have testing in progress. Well, how did these few cases go out that didn't go in the testing? Well, we were making, 10 batches, and then we'd run them all through the machine continuously. So there was no start of one batch to the end of the next one. So there's only like one of the 10 batches that was actually messed up. And we tested the other 9 batches that were all fine, but they were all grouped into one lot number. So now we have to throw away all 10 batches. So how do we fix that problem? Well, again, I don't know any of this, but I just got everybody in the same room. All of them are smarter than me, and I made sure I understood. And that's also, I guess, some vulnerability of like, people are, hey, well, did you check the absorption rate? And I'm like, I'm going to stop the meeting. What the hell's an absorption rate? And everybody looks at me like, how do you not know? I'm like, I just don't know. I need you guys to explain it until I understand it. So you're gonna have to come down to my level, and then I'm gonna write everything down, and I'm gonna make sure that I understand that it's being solved. I don't need to understand, the weeds of everything, but jumping in and saying, hey, I don't freaking know. or you're talking with somebody, and I did this just like yesterday, I think. They said 88, which I know what that means. I didn't know there. Anyways, I was like, what are you talking? What's an 88? Area development agreement. And I'm like, I own a franchisor business, probably the fastest growing franchisor business, and measured in stores open within a 2-year period of time that's ever existed. And I'm still asking the stupid questions because I'm still learning, so resolving those issues is about getting everybody together, holding everybody accountable, and not being scared or of being vulnerable and being dumb and saying, wait, I don't understand what you guys are talking about, and I want to understand it. So anyways, that happens all the time. And it's really just, I'm not the one solving the issues, but I'm bringing the right people to the team, which is kind of back to what I was talking about before. Know what you want. Maybe you do want to own a business, but you also just want to do the baking part of it. That's totally fine. Find somebody to partner with them. Replace yourself when you're not good. You can still own the business and you can still be a baker while being an owner without dealing with ops. I don't deal with any ops. I don't deal with baking. I deal with sales, which is what I love doing, but I also wanted to be a business owner. So I hired the rest out to experts.
Yeah. I got caught in the trap of, I'll just wear every hat. It's fine. I can figure it out. That was the story of my business that I had from 2015 to 2018 is I was like, nope, nobody else is going to help me. I'm just going to do it myself.
It's hard. It is hard.
Very, very stubborn, but oh man. Okay. So we're going to go into, I've got a few quick questions I like to ask at the end of my podcast. And I know we could probably talk for hours, but I like to keep these to, about 45 minutes to an hour. And maybe I'll have you back on in 6 months to a year or something and get an update from you or something. But I have a couple quick, lightning round questions. I'll ask a few of these that I like to just get to know you a little bit. So what is the best concert that you've ever attended?
Best concert. The first concert, Aaron Carter, Backstreet Boys' little brother or something. I bought a poster. I put it in my room. Aaron Carter was on my wall in junior high.
Oh, I love it. I love it. What's the most memorable dessert that you've ever had?
A tiramisu in Italy, maybe, or Rome. I don't know where I was at, but I thought, man, this is the best. And this is the first thing that comes to my mind.
Awesome. That's what these are for. How about this? I don't know if you ever bake or make food at home, but what is the most memorable cake, dessert, or food that you've made?
Oh man, I don't even really make.
That's why I was going to ask. Yeah. Do you spend much time in the kitchen or?
Not at all. I have an amazing wife that is really good in the kitchen though.
Okay.
What I like, if I'm craving something good and I want to make it and it's a dessert, it's a big sundae, right? That's something easy, but I also get to customize it with my toppings. So I'm getting the bowl out with the ice cream and then putting the whatever the heck I want in there, the chocolate syrup and maybe some whipped cream, maybe some peanuts, whatever.
Oh, I love it. A good sundae. Yeah. So good. So good. Okay. What is a common myth? And maybe you've already touched on this a little bit, but maybe there's another one that comes in mind, but a common myth about being a business owner or an entrepreneur that you'd like to address quickly.
Yeah. The myth in the E-Myth Revisited is the myth of I own a business versus I own a job. So the I own a job is I'm a business owner that if I don't go to work every day, the business doesn't run. Therefore, you don't really have a business. You just have a job, and it's a shitty job typically because you work the longest hours and you get paid last. So that's the E-Myth as I understood it.
Yes, and that was exactly my experience right there. What are some books or podcasts that you listen to, that you frequent, or that are top of your mind right now that you would recommend to listeners?
A lot of different sales books, and again, we're talking baking, but it's
anything goes.
Replace the word sales with communication, because that's what it is, right? It's I don't sell anything, but yeah, you communicate with every customer that walks through your door. You communicate with your boss. You communicate with investors. It's all about effective communication. Sales Psychology by Brian Tracy. I'm going to call it communication psychology, right? Put a little twist on it. That was a really good basic one. I'm getting more advanced in sales is The Way of the Wolf by the Jordan Belfort, Wolf of Wall Street. Never Split the Difference. Chris Voss, he's an FBI negotiator. Those are really good sells. Podcast Business Wars is my favorite business one. It's high level strategy. And every single second when things are going to hell in your business, to go look at the giants, because Business Wars, it's Blockbuster versus Netflix. It's Nike versus Adidas, right? It's FedEx versus UPS, Domino's versus Pizza Hut. And all of those stories I just mentioned, they're all on the brink of bankruptcy 10 times, right? And they're all, but yet they're still leaving Blockbuster aside, right? They're all still existing and they're all the giants. But it's like Nike, if you read Shoe Dog, the Nike book, they were almost gone like 1,000 times. But it's like, everybody goes through it, rather than like, oh, I'm struggling in my business, not everything's perfect. Never existed. The UPS or the FedEx guy, his story in this podcast was he had to make payrolls, $15,000. He has $6,000. He's going home to tell everybody business is done. Instead, because this is back in the day when you show up to the airport to buy your ticket, he sees Las Vegas and he goes, what the hell? He goes to Las Vegas and he gambles his last $6,000, turns it into 20-something thousand. Then he made payroll and that's how they're in business. And it's just like, holy shit. If FedEx did that, then like I could gamble a little bit too. Like you just got
so funny.
Push it. So that mentally, that's been a great podcast, big level strategy. Everybody struggles.
Oh, that's funny. I like that. What's the most important lesson that you've learned on your journey? This is a hard question, but
work to learn, not to earn. 100%.
Okay. Awesome. And then what occupation, other than, I know you've done a lot of different occupations, but is there an occupation or a job out there that you're like, I've always wanted to do that?
No.
And maybe not. So
I've told myself that, I mean, every day I'm like, is this even freaking worth it? I just want to sell and retire. Business is worth enough that I can be done. I'm 30 years old. I'm going to retire. Well, what would I be doing if I retired? Well, I want to be changing the world by bringing more joy and fulfillment through mental health and empowering people through entrepreneurism. That's what I'm doing. So I have to remind myself that I'm already doing what I would do if I had all the freedom in the world.
Oh, I love it. Okay. And then last question for you is, where can people find you? What's the best way for people, like if they're interested in franchises, if they're interested in where to find Dirty Dough, like anything that you have going on from a Dirty Dough standpoint, where can they find you? And of course, I'll put all your links in the show notes, but just like where can people find you and find out what's going on in your world?
BennettMaxwell.com, my website. So there's links to everything there, including dirtydough.com, which you can apply to be a franchise there. But that has all the links to social media. And speaking of free content, like I do talk business, and this podcast itself will, I'll cut it up to clips and throw it out there. But every day, 5 days a week, I post twice a day, right? And then Saturday and Sunday, I just post once a day. But I'm putting out posts every single day on business and mental health, work-life balance, everything like that. So try to add value where I can.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Bennett, for coming on my podcast. I really appreciate it. Any final things you want to say before we end?
Nope. I think I'm just excited to be here, and thank you for the opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you. So thank you so much to all of our listeners, and thank you to Bennett for joining us today. And as I started out in the podcast, we just rebranded my podcast from the Mighty Baker Business Circle podcast to the Mighty Baker Make More Dough podcast, because I'm really focusing on the ways that we can make more dough in and out of the kitchen in our bakery businesses is by focusing on mindset and marketing and focusing on those strategies in our business. So please come back and learn from me and from other business owners in future episodes. Thanks so much. See ya. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to the Make More Dough podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform to help us improve and reach more listeners. Also, if while you were listening, you thought of somebody that would benefit from listening to my podcast, please share it with them. I would really appreciate it. Don't hesitate to reach out on social media or through our website if you have any questions or feedback. Keep baking, stay inspired, and see you on the next episode.